okay, cool. Like maybe I stood on my hands or something and that was exciting, but like, how does that help me in the workplace or whatever? So anyways, it's just continuing to bridge these gaps between like, cool, these philosophies sound really nice of being all blissed out and peaceful, but like, how do I do that? Okay, I can practice on the mat, and then great, how do I practice? How do I bridge that gap? There's like these gaps that we're trying to help people bridge, and that's exciting. So anyways, that's what I wanted to share. That was at the surface for me. So yeah.
It's just so funny because when I have a very quick mind, so when you said like, how is it going to work, help me in my workplace that I can stand on my hands, and I was like, when you're just approaching it from ego and you just walk in on your hands and you're like, what's up everyone, here I am.
Yeah, just intimidating your coworkers. That's
just
a strategy,
intimidating
right?
other people, being fully superior. Just joking. I like to make jokes to like really highlight the difference between our higher self and our ego, and how sometimes also developing this higher self-awareness can become an ego trap as well. So it's like, it's all the time that lingering like that, oh yeah, I'm overcoming it, and then again you suddenly notice that maybe you feel better or you feel superior towards somebody that has a lower, and then you're like, no, where's the compassion again? And it's all the time. It's such an interesting journey. And I was just talking with somebody indeed about it, that the training, a lot of times people, when they do a TT or do a yoga training, they're like, yeah, now I'm like, we do a training and then we have this idea that we finish something. And obviously we have a symbolic roundup of a journey, but it's actually the start. Because it's actually like a proper start where you have a foundation, so that suddenly the practices you are going to do are going to be more effective because you understand why you're doing them. While of course the physical practice have benefits, but imagine that you can do a full-on Scorpio, and you can, the Scorpion pose, one of the most advanced postures where you're on your forearms and your toes are touching your head. It's the most one of the most advanced that you can say, and you can do that. But when you are in that posture, you're like, oh, look at that other person. That other person is still doing it better than me. And you are still in that voice of criticism, and your mind has not developed altogether with your physical posture. Then actually you have practiced more ego throughout. You have reinforced the structure that make you miserable in the first place by doing practice. So yeah, you can walk on your hands inside everywhere, but you can still feel pretty miserable. And that's a bit in today is like a little introduction to our energies and how we will like approach these more they're not super sophisticated theories, but they are like, there is plenty of theory, but even way more practice. And today we chose to take out a little bits and pieces of theory and then translate them into the practice we'll be doing today. So some breathwork, meditation, and physical practice, rather simple practice, but with the focus on embodiment. So yeah, I'm already started, so I'm just gonna go ahead. Now I'm good, I'm not breaking up anymore. I found a stable, good, cool. So today we decided to highlight simply the kosha theory and the klesha theory, which are two main theories, and Monica will talk about the gunas, but these are some theoretical concepts where we will dive deeper into throughout our training. And have you ever heard about kosha? Have you ever heard about koshas in your classes?
Yeah.
So koshas is the Sanskrit term for like layers, basically, and it's the 5-layer model which forms the foundation of yoga. And it's this idea which yoga is often compared with the idea of peeling an onion. You cry a lot during the process, and eventually you make it to the center. And that's the idea of your physical layer being the outer peel, but underneath the peels, there's different peels. And the idea is the holistic approach of yoga, where yoga is actually the connection of those layers with the center, which is the bliss body or Anandamaya kosha. So you have these different layers, where the outer layer is the physical body. Can you imagine another body that you have that you're aware of?
I don't know.
Another body, another, not necessarily think about it as a body, but another something that makes you you. So you have your physical, my friend calls it the flesh suit. I always think it's really funny because it's like I'm taking on my flesh suit in this human life. I'm on a mission. I came here. um, so yeah, we have the physical body, then we have the energy body, which is closely related to pranayama. It's called pranayama kosha. So it's actually, you know, our breathing body, but also the general energy we have in this life. And then we have Mana Maya Kosha and Vijna Maya Kosha, which is really interesting because you have manas, and manas is like easily translated as mind, but it's a bit more complex than how we define in our dictionary mind. Because mind is something like an individual and a collective mind. So it's like all the conditioning as well. So all the thoughts you have about who you are, how things are, what your reality is. So everything that basically comes up automatically in your day to day. So those judgment, those comparisons, those, of course, we need mind in order to live because we need to execute things. It's very closely related to ego. But then we will go deeper into this. I'm not going to go, but if you come to the training, but then we have this Vijna Maya Kosha, and this is called the wisdom body. And that is where we work a lot with yoga in order to have a more effective practice. And when I say effectiveness, I mean that it is bringing you closer to the goal. And now I'm very careful with what I'm saying, because what is a goal? And does a goal not always imply a certain result focus and therefore a discontentment of the current situation? Yes. Um, but the goal of yoga eventually is union and finding a sense of full connection with the moment, with experience, with your life path, with your dharma, which why you are here, and a sense of, and that's where I'll come to in the next part of my talk. But yeah, Vijna Maya Kosha is that ability to observe your thoughts and to become the observer of your thoughts. So to see your thoughts and no longer be the thoughts. And of course, there's a very strong relationship, bodily sensations, mind, because also your thoughts speak to your body, you know. So if you have certain thoughts, it's the thought itself doesn't mean anything, but it is what it makes you feel. If you are standing in front of the mirror, just speaking to women and body image, for example, and you are in fitting a dress in the store, and suddenly you look at yourself and you think, or there's a thought like I'm fat or something, this kind of thoughts, or I'm not good enough, or within this whole society where we are measured on the way we look and the way our body looks, it makes us feel something in our body. It's a certain memory it appeals to, because if it wasn't for the memory, if I would have fresh eyes and an open mind and no such memory, or what we call in yoga, we will go deeper into this in the training, samskaras, like impressions and things we hold on to, it would mean nothing. Because if I was living in a very old age where I was a woman goddess and I was eating grapes and people were massaging my feet and there were all sculptures of voluptuous women that have a very beautiful shapes, I would look in the mirror. I would not have that. If I was a kid and I look two women for the first time, and one fits the skirt and the other one doesn't, it wouldn't have a meaning. It wouldn't have, but it's that association with ourselves and our own experiences and feelings and everything. So Vijna Maya Kosha and the power of yoga lies in opening slowly, steadily, gradually all those bodies so that we can come back and remember our essence, which is an ability to be present with experiences that we have, and to not let our past experiences and past individual and collective trauma color. And trauma, I'm careful with the name trauma, but trauma is like these old difficult like stressors and memories define our present moment. And if they do define our present moment, to fill our Vijnamaya Kosha, our wisdom body, with so much compassion, and to practice that compassion and love, that when these moments show up that you are practicing and you feel unworthy and you feel those things, that you have a toolbox and a capacity to transform it, to no longer believe it, but to experience it and understand that feeling is the way to healing. So that you can feel, I feel inferior. I'm sorry I feel this way because this is something I've been training a long time, but you're no longer judging it, criticizing it. You are simply holding a space for it. And with that holding space, that is what you're learning to do for yourself in yoga. And that's what will make you a true and genuine teacher. And I don't really like to even say teacher training. I would say that we are doing a space holder training where we learn to hold space for our own processes, and we can facilitate others to do the same. But of course, if we would call it a space holder training, people would be like, what is that? So we call it the TT, but now you know that this is our focus. So that was a brief introduction to sketch. And then you come, of course, with the essence, which is the bliss body. And that's the idea that when all those meanings and samskaras and karma and all these meanings are dissolved, then we enter this state like this openness. And then we come to the quickly, just briefly, relationship to ego and higher self, and the relationship to the kleshas, which I was saying that I was talking about today. So koshas, the 5-layer model, and kleshas, a Buddhist and yogic term to refer to the causes of suffering. So this is a very important part of Eastern philosophy. And this has to do with the definition of our causes of suffering, so that we can understand why within our human life we are suffering. And that once we understand the cause of our suffering, we can also transform it and redefine its meaning. I want to just quickly make a guess with you guys what the cause of suffering might be. And then I just want to round up with higher self ego relationship and how we will develop more connection with our higher self. So what do you think one of the causes of suffering is? Very broad, like why do you think you suffer in this life? When you would look, you can do a wild guess because it's a bit abstract and a bit, but you can make a wild guess. Why do all people in this world suffer according to philosophy?
Maybe like a discontentment, like unexpected versus observed, having like a big distance in between those two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So discontentment. Mm-hmm. So the space between what you want things to be and what things are, right? That's how you would say. So the discontentment.
Yeah, like having an expectation that's either up here or having an observation that's down here, and either one of those can be.
And then the meaning you give to it, right?
But yeah, whatever that distance is between those two.
Because somebody can look at the rain and say, for example, oh, it's raining, the plants are getting water, I'm really happy that, and another one can say, oh, it's raining again, I hate it. So it's the meaning we give to it, and who is giving that meaning? Where does that meaning come from? You, but what part of you?
I don't know.
Maybe like the some sort of combination of your layers.
So it's the ego, basically. So our personality, our ego personality that's formed on something. So ego is it's one of the kleshas, basically, is our ego. And then that ego is linked to attachment. So these ideas of what good is and what bad is, which are the two other ones, basically, because you have your ego, so your personality and all your ideas on what's right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad, and bringing all this meaning and significance to all events. Then you have the attachment itself, so that you are having this ideas on what reality needs to be, and you are judging it because it's not, and that people is that, and those situations are that, and then you have basically that attachment is closely linked to, and this is also closely linked to the ego. It's your desire, you want to attract good things, you want to attract pleasure and avoid pain. And that's really the main thing of the ego. It's like, I want more pleasure and I want to push away pain. So that's basically one of the most important things that where it's and that's very closely related to the fear, the biggest fear that we have, which is basically attachment to life, the greatest attachment we have, which is the fear of death. So all of those things are like, this is where we work with and where we grow our understanding in the practices, especially with regards to ego and understanding how your own ego works, which will give you a big insight and understanding of how other people's ego work, and will help you to no longer take things personally, but to only take a full ownership about your own inner world and your own, which we will work a lot on, your own alignment of thoughts, words, and actions with intention, so that you will become way less focused on what the actual results are of what you're doing, but way more on what your intention is and what you want to create. So we are shifting from an automatic ego personality functioning in reality, constantly suffering because things are not the way you want them to be, into this connection with your inner essence, your spirit, your higher self, where you understand that you come here to learn something. Your soul comes here to expand, and within that perspective and acknowledging that and embodying that, that you can learn from everything. So then even your definition, and that's where we practice later, your definition of a good practice will no longer be, I was in all the warriors today and I did the pro and I did that and I did that and I was really the best and I didn't go to child's pose once and I was, where that might have been a good practice before. Now a good practice would be like, if there's something like a good practice, but your intention change, your meaning would be something like, my body was in pain today. I felt so tired, but you know what? I was listening to my needs. I was tuning in with what I needed. I was connecting to the sensations in my body, and I was releasing the judgment. I had a new sense of able to observe everything and to immerse in the experience itself. And that's, if you then measure good or going to the result of yoga, if there's any kind of result, that would define a process, not only a progress and process, not only anymore in your asana, but in the meaning you give to the practice and your alignment with your intention to become a more balanced human being. And then our asana practice, when you finally get on your hands and your mindset is growing in the same way that your body is growing, and you're able to release physical tensions, but also mental blockages, then you will actually become happier from being on your hands. Then you will actually gain something from it in all aspects of your life. So that was my talk. And Monica was like, you can do 10 minutes. And of course, I passed them a little bit, but I was there and I did it. And I felt that I covered the two basic models of the 5 koshas and the kleshas, and just understanding basically how, for me, and the part that I'm contributing a lot is transforming the ego through compassion and through humor and through intention, transforming the ego self into alignment with your higher self, with this higher awareness that has an ability to hold space for, firstly, yourself, and therefore also for the people around you in a more compassionate and connected way. So yeah, that was my part. Does anybody have any questions or anything?
No, it was really interesting. No, very interesting.
Have you ever thought about it this way?
A little bit, but that's probably what I need to practice on more, I think.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Thank you, Beth. And Alicia, how was that for you? How do you receive?
Oh yeah, that was good. I have one question for you. Would you I'm thinking about kind of like the first world suffering, like I've gotten this dress, and actual suffering. And if you would teach the lessons the same way for, you know, maybe a body and a mind, where maybe the suffering isn't like, oh, if you just rearrange your mind and, think about the rain positively, your whole life will be changed. Like if you have an experience where the suffering isn't coming from your mindset, the suffering is maybe placed upon you by someone else, then it feels like there might still be yogic trainings that would serve that kind of need. And I just wondered if, like, how those would be different based on whether the suffering comes from inside you versus like is externally placed upon you. Does that make sense?
Could you refer to a specific situation? Are you referring to physical pain? Are you referring to suppression? Are you referring to vulnerable groups in society?
That's what I'm thinking about. Especially in like, I don't know very much about the history of yoga, but I know it comes from a place and from a long time ago where people didn't have it easy, and we have it very easy now. And I just think about how much these trainings like serve a purpose for lives that are very easy, but I don't have very much experience with how they serve lives that are very hard, but I think it was developed in that space. My guess.
I'm loving already your questions, because we really love that. Monica and I, we really love that, and we always want you to question everything also, because it's really important that we are all supporting each other in opening our perspectives, so that when you are in the training, that we will not only be teaching you things, but more like we are sharing things, and then we are absorbing it together, because we are in this interaction and space together. When we look at yoga, and especially when we will cover yoga history, but also cultural this word is really difficult for me. You know what I mean? How appropriate it's already in the culture. Monica and I try to really translate our practices to your space in the first place, so that you can become a more aligned being, basically, so that we take the parts of it and we try to go as far back where it's truly about the foundations of it, and of course the modern day interpretation. Because when we look at the asanas we practice nowadays, the roots of those asanas are maybe in like a few centuries only ago, but the roots of yoga date back like thousands of years ago. So this is really philosophy, and this is really a culture and time. So depending where you go, whether you go a few centuries ago or whether you go thousands of years ago, Monica, fill in on me when I'm saying something that I'm just saying whatever comes up for me. But even these thousands of years ago, I was not there, but this was really a time of the seers and the people that were practicing yoga in that time. Yoga has not been always available for all the audience. It was more like the seers and the wise people that like received the teachings, but it was not always as widespread as it has the opportunity to be nowadays, where still we see, especially with this goes to another discussion, but especially with regards to, for example, Yoga Alliance and the trainings, that we see that yoga has become something that is also privileged practice many times. So especially when it comes to training opportunities, the cost of a training and a certified training, that's why Monica and I strive to also, this is one of our main goals in setting up our school and further professionalizing in the future, to offer it like scholarships, because it is not always available. And that's just a whole question within society, like that we have these, like the same with yoga, but the same with healthy food and nutrition. Like how can it be available to those more vulnerable groups? There's also a lot of suppression nowadays that we don't know always within families, within society as well, like feminine, masculine, people with other sexual orientations, people with different races. Like, I'm not necessarily feeling that nowadays we have it always easier. Maybe we, you, I, but even there, it's not always, because whatever we feel like we can handle on a level of suffering, it's also, we cannot really compare it like my suffering is more than yours, because depending on, we don't always see from the outside what somebody's dealing with from the inside. But we are trying in our training to do it. And I've been working a lot in projects in Nicaragua and Kenya to spread this wisdom to people from total different backgrounds. So I work with people that have more privilege, if I can say it, but I also work with people that don't have it. And that then I go to communities, and every time I go somewhere, I work with people with different backgrounds and try, one of my intentions, set up a fully funded training for Kenyan students, so kids from Kenya. But they are also to some sense privileged, because they are already students that already speak English, for example. So you could go really far that I'm not speaking Swahili, but when I'm training teachers that are speaking English, they can teach it to the ones in Swahili eventually. So it's like, I feel it's more like pouring water, and like it's like driplet per driplet to eventually create a wave. But that we are doing the training, and the yoga starts to spread also to more vulnerable communities, and it has the potential nowadays more than ever to go out into those most vulnerable communities, to go out, because the knowledge is translatable. Because a lot of times, not all the time, but when people are remembered, people many times that are in a situation of suppression, of course, they usually don't choose it, but to some extent, when they get more power and they feel more empowered and they get a sense of support or a support network, when things in their perception change, also their sense of power. And because a lot of times they have been growing up, I've also just round up a project with kids from, or students from Cape Town on Zoom, live classes. And a lot of times there is a lot of conditioning around what you can do and what's possible. And I've also been questioning myself, like, who am I here sitting in Portugal and chatting with these kids in South Africa that are living in very difficult situations, but we do find a lot of connection and respect because they can take things from it. And I think it's better to reach out than to not do anything. And of course, sometimes it's really hard to be in a situation that is more privileged than somebody else. But when we meet each other where we are, and we just have the best intention and we all try to do what we can, is better than fully stay away from it. I feel, if I can say better or worse, out of a fear of it not being appropriate, because this wisdom and an ability to tune in with your higher self, despite what your physical reality is, it will give you more power, it will give you more ownership. And it's super difficult to see people suffer, but we can do our share. And yeah, I'm talking a lot, Monica, so please take in on me. This was for me an interesting question. I don't know if I answered your question somehow.
Yeah. Thanks for going in on that. It wasn't so much of a question, just like, I don't know. But I feel you definitely addressed it. So thanks for that.
Well, and I'd love to add a little bit too, which is your question of, was yoga essentially invented in a time or for a people that was at that more, suppression, survival level of suffering? And actually it did come from more kind of the higher caste originally. So it's interesting that, as Anne alluded to, that's kind of stayed the same in terms of it's still kind of more accessible for kind of a higher caste. But eventually, like, the lineage of Tantra and stuff is what started to make it more accessible for everybody, for everyday people. And I would say that in terms of actual practices and techniques, I think they're the same. And I get what you're saying of, like, how do you say, okay, go meditate to somebody that's trying to, like, just barely put food on the table? And I've met people, in Nicaragua, that they sleep 2 hours a day because they have to work 20 hours a day, 6 days a week, kind of thing. And, like, how do you tell that person, like, oh, meditation is going to help you? So I think the practice is the same, but perhaps the way you're offering or delivering that practice, the way you're explaining it, is the same. Because as Anne talked about, like, all of it is about the ability to help regulate ourselves. It's like, if you're in survival mode, you're still going to be aided by being able to find some sort of central place of peace within yourself, right? Like that's going to give you more power eventually. Understanding yourself, understanding your reactions. So maybe you actually feel less afraid or you feel less controlled. Again, getting your kind of power back, removing some of that conditioning. And that applies again, like you said, whether it's, you know, somebody upset about their Prada bag being broken in New York City, or somebody who's like, again, living in that very different reality. Like some of those overarching themes are the same and they benefit us all, no matter our kind of level of suffering. And I love that Anne pointed out, it's like, it is kind of relative to, it's like that person with the broken Prada bag, they might feel more suffering than the person who's like, wow, I can't eat today, you know, like, because our minds can regulate that, and our nervous systems and our bodies and our upbringing and our conditioning. So yeah, super interesting question, Alicia. Thank you.
Yeah,
That was
cool.
awesome.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. So Anne,
Yeah.
should I do my part?
Yeah, your part, please. Yeah.
So yeah, ladies, we had set up to start our practice soon. Feel free to move your body, take a quick break. I'm gonna try and do my talk in like 10 minutes. We'll do another short Q&A and then we'll move. So yeah, if you want to take a moment to adjust or whatever. And I'm gonna share my screen because, as Alicia knows, I'm a science nerd. I love to make slides. Oh, I need you to enable me to share my screen, Anne.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna make you host.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, Anne kind of talked about really if we want to break through things, often it is this, first of all, realization that's often coming from the ego self, and yoga can be this practice of integrating the ego or not just being governed by it unconsciously, right? And so right now you already could notice in yourself if you're like, oh, there's slides, I have to take notes. So this is always a self-awareness practice. No notes are needed. It's mostly for me. I'm a very visual person and I try to organize my mind. So first of all, this idea of how do we break through habits, like I just really thought of a habit is a choice that we're constantly making, right? So but what's interesting is our characters as human beings and ultimately our lives are governed by these little tiny day-to-day choices that we're making all the time. And so of this idea of how to overcome these habits, it's basically, why do we do things we know aren't good for us? That's kind of the question behind that. And essentially, how can we make better choices and healthier choices for ourselves? So to kind of really go into some philosophy that I find interesting, the first answer that I uncovered from some texts is that it's pleasant. So sometimes we make these choices that are quote unquote bad choices or bad habits because it feels good in the moment. And this was actually alluded to in the Katha Upanishad, which is some of our oldest texts that we draw upon or that influence our yoga practice. So this is saying what is good for the soul, to move this a little, and what is pleasant for the body and senses. It's kind of a confusing quote, but it says, and causes you to miss the good. So just already starting to allude to what's good for the soul and what is pleasant for the body aren't always aligned. And often what feels pleasant for the body in the moment might be drawing us away from what's good for the soul. And so essentially, our bodily senses are often dominating our attention and governing our choices. And originally, yoga itself, some of the oldest forms of yoga were really about mastering the senses. That was kind of the whole point or the purpose. So one of the ways we start to do this is through a meditation practice. And there's a specific part of that practice where we're really drawing our attention inwards, so that they're not always outward, just kind of feeling like we're being pushed around, like, oh, I smell cookies, I have to have a cookie. Oh, that screen has something on it that's interesting, I got to give it my attention, whatever it is. So we're not kind of being in this push and pull constantly by our senses. And then kind of the second piece is starting to inquire, at the choice points, is this action good for my soul, borrowing that little phrase from the Upanishad, or does it just feel pleasant in this moment? And it takes some time to see the point when we can inquire and then to do something differently, but I'll get to that in a minute. And so another answer to this question of why we do things that we know aren't good from us, I'm borrowing from the Bhagavad Gita. So this is one of also our kind of foremost yogic texts that we use to help us understand the practice. And essentially it's that the gunas make us do it. It's not my fault. My gunas are making me do it. So according to Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he talks about, and I'll get into what these gunas are, so that makes more sense. But basically, it's because of the gunas. Often it's rajas, and so the gunas, it's this word for strand, and they're essentially these three elements that are believed to comprise all of matter. Us, everything we see around us, is in some kind of constant ebb and flow of these three elements. So we'll take a quick look at these. The first one is tamas. And this is essentially starts to relate to the quality of more of a dull mind, obscuring awareness, veiling power. Again, just for time, I won't go into everything, but we think of it as kind of this lazy, heavy energy. It can be like that depressive energy. It makes us prone towards decisions that are based in fear or avoidance, but also to point out, it says allows for sleep and rest, right? None of these gunas are necessarily bad. They have a purpose. So here we want to have some tamas sometimes. We want to bring in rest as a good thing. And at the bottom, hinders self-inquiry and meditation. Noted. Second one, even the colors here are also kind of indicative. So this is this dark black gray, and then we have a red because rajas is really this kind of almost a quality of fire. So this is our energetic mind. But because it's so passionate, you can see towards the middle, it talks about being passionate, aggressive, excited, but prone to anxiety. That can start to distort our awareness. But again, positively, it can have a projective power. It gives us desire, motivation. Those are good things. We need those in our lives. And at the bottom, once again, says hinders self-inquiry and meditation. And so our last of the third gunas is what's called sattva. And so this is more of our quality of having a clear and calm mind, more of a revealing power and awareness. So this is our balanced state. We're more peaceful, contented, harmonious. We're able to see and make choices more from truth and beingness. And one of the keys here is how it allows for discernment. And it also, because of that, helps to facilitate self-inquiry and meditation. So again, if we don't have that moment of discernment at the choice point of where is this motivation coming from, where is this decision coming from to do this things that's not helpful for me, it's harder to make good choices without that discernment. And so usually they're kind of put together like this, where we have tamas on one end, rajas on the other, and sattva is like kind of in the middle, that more centered, peaceful state. So essentially, Krishna is alluding to the fact that often there's some sort of rajas that's driving us. Ooh, I have this desire, like I need my 5th cappuccino today because I want to get this thing done. There's a lot of desire, even though part of my brain is like, I don't think you need your 5th cappuccino. But we also might have, some of these bad habits coming from tamas as well. Maybe we're avoiding something. We're afraid of something, so we're avoiding something. We can't quite muster up the energy to get ourselves to exercise, even though we know we should for various reasons, things like this. And so how can we start to not be governed by tamas and rajas is coming more towards sattva. And what's really amazing, one of the things I love about yoga and Ayurveda is we can cultivate sattva through other things. So some of the ways we can cultivate sattva is with our food. Generally, sattvic food is light, clean, organic, fresh, and seasonal. And again, we won't spend a ton of time, but just so you have a little introduction, rajasic food, you can think of it again, it's fire. So it's spicy, acidic, alcohol, caffeine is rajasic food. And then tamasic, remember, is that kind of like heavy lethargic energy. So that's what the food is like. It's dense, it's heavy. It might be old leftovers. And then it's also overeating because that makes us feel tamasic. So we can start to cultivate more sattva and perhaps even make better choices simply by looking at the food we eat. We can look at our activities, what we're doing, but how we're doing it. So in theory, yoga is naturally more sattvic, but you need to do it that way, right? If I'm trying to practice 100 handstands a day because I want to get that selfie, like, is that coming from a sattvic place? I don't know. That's a bit questionable, right? So we still need to bring that discernment and awareness into how we're doing our activities. Even sleep, going to bed before 10, waking up with the sun, something like that. Is thought to be more of a sattvic time for sleeping. Our clothing, you might even notice it. Okay, if I'm wearing my leather hot pants and my crop top, like, do I feel more rajasic? If I'm wearing my black sweatpants for a week, I feel more tamasic. If I'm wearing something white, if I'm wearing a natural fiber, I'm probably going to feel more sattvic. I can cultivate more sattva that way. Even, you know, cultivating sattva in your home, in your space, keeping it brighter, keeping it neater, tidier, spending time in nature, having some sort of a spiritual practice. The stars are the things that we're going to explore in the practice, of course. And one of the gifts of yoga, again, it's this opportunity to cultivate sattva. Our attitude, so this can be a gratitude practice. It can be, again, how we're approaching things all day long. And again, the yogic practice and asana practice, time on our mat, is a chance to cultivate that. Looking at our tech use, right? Tech can be very loaded with rajas or tamas too, right? So becoming mindful about how we're using our technology and maybe doing that in a sattvic way, which means, you know, can we use it in a way that's centered, that feels balancing, that feels from kind of the higher self. And then finally having a sattvic sangha. So sangha here meaning community. So yeah, maybe you have that friend that's super rajasic all the time, or you have the friend that's a little tamasic. And this is basically saying you can just hang out with sattvic people too and start to cultivate some sattva in yourself. So hanging out with your more centered and balanced feeling homies in your life. And so things we can start to inquire about here is, as we become aware, like what guna do I tend towards? Is there one that's dominant for me all day? Maybe yes, maybe no, maybe it fluctuates. And in general, you know, if we can see this choice point, what is the guna? Is this being driven by rajas? Do I really want something? Am I avoiding something? Is it coming from tamas? Or is this choice, this habit or whatever, coming from sattva, a steady centered place? And so what I notice about both of these two strategies from the yogic texts is they have in common awareness and discipline. And this is a lot of the things we're cultivating through the yogic practices. So I want to share a little bit last about kind of personal experience and strategies. So yes, like just to tap into a super easy kind of habit to talk about might be procrastination. So one of the things I can do is use this, all those things that I mentioned to cultivate sattva. And Anne talked about samskaras. This is one of my favorite topics and one of the most, I think, fruitful aspects of yoga. And so we won't go into it too much for the sake of time, but basically we need to be in sattva to release samskaras. Why do samskaras matter when it comes to bad habits? Because I would actually argue a lot of these bad habits are coming from samskara. So a samskara is an impression. It's also translated as a yogic knot. And I often think of it as these really quick, there's a stimuli and I have a response. Like, oh, this guy looked at me this way. And it's the way that my dad looked at me when I was 3. And so this triggers a super quick cascade into my body and mind of all these things. And it's so fast, I'm not choosing it, right? It's just this quick pattern. So that's an example of a samskara. They can be both helpful and unhelpful. But sometimes our bad habits are actually just a samskara. It's this really old pattern. And in the yogic philosophy, what's fascinating about samskara is they can come from us, but they can come from past lifetimes, and they can come from our ancestors as well. And so we need sattva to start to release these samskaras, let those habit patterns and knots unwind. And so generally I like to use body and mind practices to kind of release rajas, like give myself an outlet for that passion and to move tamas and like decrease tamas. So I usually use physical practices to balance the body and breath practices to balance the mind. Also, we can explore applying ahimsa. So we won't go into this too much, but ahimsa is the principle of nonviolence that you might have heard of in some of your yoga classes. And so even kind of asking ourselves, okay, like, again, I'm at this choice point. Do I want to sleep an extra 3 hours today, even though I've slept 12 hours every day for 2 weeks? And asking, like, is that kind to my future self? Is this action kind to others? So ahimsa is basically, is it kind? We're trying not to be violent to ourselves or others. And then for me, as Alicia knows, she joined me for some meditation recently. One of the primary ways that I like to cultivate awareness is through meditation. So not only are we starting to quote unquote master the senses, when we sit there, we got to deal with, oh, I'm itchy, oh, I'm thirsty, oh, I'm hot, I want to move. And we're practicing sitting there with that so that when we're in that moment and it's like, oh God, like I gotta have that 12th piece of pizza, I'm just being ridiculous. But this is what our senses do. We feel that strongly. We don't have to listen to it. This can happen through meditation practice. As Anne mentioned, every time we meditate, we're practicing zooming out and coming more into Vijnanamaya Kosha. So that's kind of the higher mind or the higher self. And that's, again, more sattvic, more discerning, all these things. And we're seeing, okay, if I'm thinking this thing, if I'm feeling this thing emotionally or physically, it's an egoistic expression of myself. This isn't the higher self. I don't have to be governed by this. But the most important and simplest reason why we want awareness is we need to see there's a fork in the road, right? If we don't realize I have this bad habit so strong, I don't even see another choice, it's going to be a little tricky to break that one. And that's what some scars are, is we often don't even see a choice because it's very strong. So first, awareness to see the choice. And second is discipline cultivation, also called tapasya in the yoga tradition. And tapasya is actually one of the first types of yogic practices. So when you think of yogis going and being in the woods and not eating for days, right? That was one of their ways of practicing in austerity, being in discomfort. Or some yogis, it's like this is their yoga practice. They sit with their arm like this 24 hours a day or whatever for a long time. Like these are examples of tapasya and how that was a very, very old form of yoga, basically. But we can practice doing things that we don't want to do, because every time we want to shift from something that's unhealthy, again, doing these things we know aren't good for us, doing them anyways, it's going to require a bit of discomfort. It's going to be maybe a little uncomfortable. Remember, it might not feel pleasant in the moment, but we know it's good for the soul. So we can practice going through resistance regularly. So this can be commitment to something in your yoga practice, but anything else. Because essentially, okay, great, I have awareness. I see that there's a fork in the road. I see there's another choice, but it takes like a lot of energy to turn the wheel, to go down the other path, make the healthier choice. And so that's what tapas actually translates to heat. And it's that like fiery energy. And so we need to cultivate that as well, train that in us to make a different choice at the fork in the road, so that we can choose, again, what's good over what's pleasant, and maybe choose from that higher over the lower self. All right. That was it for me. Thank you for listening. Do you guys have any questions? And then we'll take a little break.
That was just really interesting. It's something I had never heard about.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really, really interesting. Yeah. So a little bit of suffering's good for everybody then.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like an intentional suffering.
Uh-huh.
And it's kind of, well, we could call it suffering or just discomfort, or what Anne and I call it is going through resistance. Right? Because like sitting there through an itch, it's like, yeah, it's kind of suffering, but it's mostly just your mind having a lot of resistance around something too. So yeah.
I think meditation I do find quite hard, and I think it is something that it's training yourself to zoom out, just like you said. And that's something I probably really need to practice a bit more, because I probably would give in to the itch eventually and scratch my nose instead of pretending it wasn't happening.
Yeah, well, the itch honestly is kind of an advanced practice. It can be super intense, but you can work up to that, and then it's like pretty exciting. But yeah.
And, very interesting.
Cool. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, should we take a little? Oh, Will, do you want to talk a little any more about the TT? Oh, you're muted.
I can take it because I don't want to go super strong over time, but I do want to have the opportunity to have a physical practice, or at least to have like an idea about like how bringing this, what we just did, how we can translate that to a practice. But of course, I also want to invite you. What I will do also is I can activate an access to my platform as well. So if you want to practice in the coming days with me, I do weekly classes, so you can grab the opportunity and also join me for a yin or hatha practice that you have like a full-on practice. So if you felt like you wanted to practice more, I have a gallery and library, so you can also check later there a class. But the intention of the session today is really to translate that simple notion. So we will do a sattvic breathing and then do some postures where the cueing is specifically focused on developing and bringing that awareness. And then you will start to approach the more difficult postures as the one that will bring you more in the direction you wish to go. So the ones that you, it's often said, like the ones you really hate, is the one you need most. And that's how it is, because if you're all the time avoiding that discomfort, you cannot avoid discomfort in life. You cannot avoid it in the practice. And once you start to shift that inner mindset, like, okay, it's an opportunity for me to grow. What is happening when I'm going in that posture? Why am I not? Why is it so difficult for me to be there? So yeah, let's, you maybe want to set up a bit, Monica, and I can handle any other questions that come up with regards to this. So you can set up and we can get started.
Yeah, cool.
By the
I'm
way,
gonna adjust myself and get ready for the practice. So I'll see you guys in a minute.
I always get really excited about Monica's slides. Monica's really organized. We are like a very good team because Monica's all, I'm more intuitive, like I'm all the time just channeling, like I'm all the time just taking what is coming and like going very like that. And I really like Monica's structure. It's like it's a nice complementary package that we offer. Do you have any other questions for now or anything else you want to know?
Can't think of anything at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions right now. But I'm really enjoying hearing you to share your philosophies. So this is, thank you for
Yeah, I agree. It's really interesting, and it makes you look at yoga in a different way. I think sometimes you go to practice and it is just the physical practice. You're not really thinking of all the other bits round about it, and I think that's what's been really interesting so far.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Listening to these, yeah.
One of my first yoga teachers, or one of the first yoga workshops I truly did was with a very, it was like years ago, with a very intense American guy who is like very rude. He's a bit rude, not the judgment, but he's very, and one of the things he was like, you don't bring your shit to yoga mat. And he was really screaming a bit. He's the kind of person that's like burping and screaming but he was also making jokes because he was like, you know, he teaches worldwide. And he says like, if I'm teaching in China and I start to burp during my talk, everybody's really like exciting. When I did it in France, everybody left the room. So this like conditioning and this cultural, how things are perceived differently with people. And what he basically says is like, yeah, if you come to yoga and you're not aware that you have these samskaras, that you have these strong imprints, and you go to do a practice which is so-called good for you, but you continue to reinforce that, you are basically growing your shit instead of removing it through the practice. If I can call it shit, which is a simple word, but you are coming out of the practice, and of course you will feel good because you move your physical body, but you are not shaping your mental body, which is the most powerful practice. And that is what makes it so valuable for all of us to have that information, because then we are truly making a change and we are translating it from yoga on the mat to off the mat, that when we step off the mat, then it begins. Then it continues. It's not like now I come on my mat and I'm zen and no, we come out and then we have that confrontation. And that's what I love about the idea of practice. We practice something to then try to do it in our life when the conditions are not so optimized, and when we are carving out this sacred space for connection, because it's in interaction with other people that we are often challenged the most. But and you can really pull it very far, this one, okay? But when we look at our teachers in life and we say, yeah, my greatest teacher, I have, for example, an amazing teacher, Monica, of course, also my teacher, like people that inspire me with their talks and their compassion. And if I don't feel well, I can connect with them and we can, in compassion, unite and share and bring elevated perspective. But those people in my life that challenge me so much, those things that challenge me so much, and they are not treating me with compassion and they are not showing me the road to compassion, the people that really give you a hard time, that really make you question yourself, that really make you question, they are also, and the more you come and deeper into that yoga practice, to some extent your teacher, because they are also showing you very important things. And yeah, we'll go deeper into that, but especially also with our upbringing and, you know, the people that bullied us or challenged us or all of those things, they somehow also showed us something. And it's a very difficult karmic load for people to choose to come into that role. Like I've had a lot of encounters with really strong narcissists and people screaming at me or yelling, you know, and this kind of encounters. And then it's so easy to come then in your ego and to go into that defense mode then, but to actually then step into that higher perspective self and see what that person actually needs, even if they are attacking you personally, to understand that that person is suffering hell of a lot, that they are showing up that way, and to see how we can not only reach out to the people that are compassionate and open, but eventually to also start and build bridges and see beyond that in immediate first ego defense reaction and to go beyond. But then of course it's always a question of when do we give energy and when do we just pull back. But to understand that building a new world or creating new worlds and new mechanisms, it's not only about holding a space and for the people that give us an easy time and that give us a compassion and make us feel confident and everything. It's about the challenging situations and people where we can learn a lot and the most. But yeah, we will have plenty of time to connect about that. So let's now take a moment to sink in. And what I like personally a lot is if you want to practice with some music in your home, then you can mute. I can send you a little playlist, just a simple grounding, peaceful music here that I have. Very simple, because our practice, I want to note that if we will do hatha yoga in our training, that sometimes it will lean into more vinyasa kind of practice. So we will go a bit faster sometimes, but the intention of the practice now is to really practice this, to have this embodiment of a new way of approaching the practice. So what I'm doing now is not necessarily fully representative for how our morning will be, because we will also have some more challenging practices. So Monica is gonna do the practice. I'm gonna tell you what to do, and you can use the music, but then please mute if you don't like to use music and just use my voice. It's fine as well. So we'll go to a brief practice, but just for the sake of the practice. So let's take a moment to lay down on your back, or you can lay down flat on your back. We'll just do simple, very simple practice, physically at least. So you can lay down on the back, and if you feel like your head is below your chest, I would recommend you to place a cushion underneath your head to make sure that your head is slightly elevated above your heart. You can bend your legs if you feel safe to. You can bend your legs if it feels better for you. Excuse me. If it feels better for your lower back, you can bend the legs slightly and drop your knees together. Or of course, you can take a Supta Baddha Konasana, so a reclined butterfly, where you place the soles of the feet together. What's most important is that you take a moment to become really comfortable in your own space. You can place your hands anywhere you wish to place them, but for the sake of practicing the specific guna, the sattva guna condition, the balanced state of being, through your energetic practice, you can place one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. Then close your eyes if it feels appropriate and safe for you to do so. Because you are here for nobody but yourself, and you don't have to show anything to anybody. You are just here to show up for yourself. So allow yourself to draw all your awareness into this moment. Wherever your attention goes, it grows. So give yourself a time and space to draw, to pull everything in to this very moment. To start and notice the things that are around you in your current environment that make you present. So immediate sounds, sensations, the gravity, the pull of gravity underneath you, the space around you, the taste in your mouth, the smell in your nose, and even possible thoughts racing through your mind right now. Allow the meaning, the significance to dissolve so you can simply experience it all. And in order to shift from that automatic reaction into a conscious creation, your breath is key. So tune into that breath and simply notice, where is my breath now? Is it high in my chest? Is it low in my belly? Are my thoughts racing? Am I distracted or connected? Notice and hold the space for all that is, so that you can become open and accepting for whatever will be. That where you are, as you are, is exactly where and how you need to be. So take a few fuller breaths now and allow, which in yoga what we call the prana, the life force, the cosmic life force, to fill your lungs. So you breathe in and you invite this precious oxygen created by plants and complex ecosystems into the bottom of your lungs. The lungs expand, the chest expands, the side body expands, and you cultivate sattva, the state of mental and physical balance. Take a few more breaths in and out, and when you continue to be in the mind, in the thoughts, in the conditioning, come back into the body and breathe in fully, slowly, and gradually. Fill the physical shape with awareness. Take a little pause, and then when you breathe out, allow the body to soften onto the ground. Allow the body to soften each and every body part where you can release immediate tension. Take a few more breaths in and out and establish now a mental connection between your third eye center, ajna, which we call in yoga our third eye center. And your lower belly, your energetic center, your navel center. Take 3 more full in and out breaths as you invite this intention to not focus on the result, but to focus on exploration, experience, and open up to your inherent sense of curiosity. To experience all with open eyes and an open heart. Take 1 more full deep breath in. And then on your next out breath, you're going to hug your knees to your chest and you're just going to hold your body for a moment. Hold yourself for a moment. So hug your knees to your chest and just hold yourself closely. Hug your body and take a moment to appreciate simply what your body enables you to do. It's so easy to judge our body, but try to intentionally invite appreciation for this body. All that you like to do and experience in this life is made possible through this body. So hold it and fill it with awareness, new oxygen and energy. And if you need another breathing rhythm, then I will guide you through as I will guide asana practice, physical practice with breath. Of course, be free to find your own rhythm of breath. Take 1 more full breath in. And as you breathe out, you place the soles of the feet on the ground and you start to reach with your fingers towards your heels. Now place your feet hip width apart, press firmly down into the feet and slightly tuck your chin under so there's a strong connection from the tailbone to the crown of the head. Now on your next in-breath, you're gonna lift your hips up. So hip bridge, lift the hips up, breathe fully in. Now breathe out, release the hips down to the ground, draw the navel in and up and squeeze the pelvic floor. 2 more full deep breath in, lift the hips up. Breathe out, press into the feet, lower the hips down, squeeze the pelvic floor in and out. Last one, breathe in, lift the hips up. And breathe out, lower the hips down. Very well. Now just extend your right leg up to the ceiling or the sky and grab on with your 2 hands onto the back of your right leg. The closer you grab onto the foot, the more intense it will be. Press your lower back firmly into the floor as you pull your right leg towards you for 3 breaths. You can really activate the right foot by pulling the right toes more towards you, possibly extending the left leg out. Good. Can you try to gently press the right leg into the hands when you breathe in and pull towards you when you breathe out? Whenever something distracts you and brings your energy out into distraction, into judgment, just return back. Breathe in and breathe out. 1 deep breath in, breathe out, release, release. Place the soles of the feet onto the ground. Just relax. Take a moment. Just relax any neutral position. 2 legs bent or 2 legs straight. And just take a moment to notice the subtle energetic difference between right and left side. Notice sensations, heaviness, lightness, spaciousness. No judgment, just experiencing. As you switch sides, free from expectation, just ready and open to explore the other side. Extend the left leg up to the sky and pull the left toes towards you if possible. Grab on closer to the left foot if that enhances your stretch, or possibly straighten the right leg. Continue to pull the hips towards each other so your left hip moves away from the left shoulder as the right hip comes a little bit up to make sure the hips are stacked, stable, and you only isolate the movement of the leg, pulling it towards you on an out breath. Breathe fully in. Now breathe out. Hug the two knees to the chest again. Give yourself a big hug. And now start to rock back and forward. So you're rocking back and forward, stimulating the back of the back, the adrenals. So go like that. Continue. Close your eyes for a moment and feel if you can roll even more on the shoulders, but tuck the chin in. So roll back and forth, and breathe into the base of your spinal column. We do that 2 more times. Try to find some velocity here and then try to land onto your toes. So try to come into a standing forward fold with or without using the hands. Forward fold. You can check what Monica's doing. Yes, perfect. If you feel that you're in doubt, Monica is practicing. Good. So you're in a standing forward fold. Now you're going to straighten your legs softly, drop the head down and take 3 breaths. If you feel it's too much to drop the head fully, then you can continue to look a little bit forward. If you want to go deeper, you can grab onto your opposite elbows, but take a moment to be mindful of the weight of your body into your feet, releasing the full back chain of your body. So possibly you want to bend the legs a bit more. And can you now try to invite more spaciousness and breath into the back of your body? Take another full deep breath in, breathe out. Now push into the feet as if you want to push the earth, the floor away. Now keep the chin to the chest as you're going to stand up tall. You're going to stand up, stretch your arms overhead and take a moment to make yourself as big as you can. So can you ground your feet into the floor? Maybe you have the toes together or feet hip width. And can you stretch your arms fully overhead as you ground the feet down? Feel the connection of your spine from your tailbone to the ground. And when you breathe in, you stretch your fingers a little bit higher. And when you breathe out, you press your feet more down and you draw your navel into the spine, connecting to the pelvic floor, connecting to Apana energy, your ability to ground and be present. Breathe in. And now breathe out, join your hands in front of heart center, press your thumbs against your heart, push your hands together, as we're gonna have a movement of energy, a wave of connective, collective energy moving through us, an energy of openness, transformation, and enablement. The sound of Om, which is a vibration that helps us to tap into the higher universal energy. So instead of judging your regular Om or feeling uncomfortable, notice the discomfort and allow that energy to flow through you freely. Let's take a full deep breath in first. And full deep breath out for 1 Om. Go as free as you can today. Go, breathe in for Om. Om. And rub your hands together and take a moment to just place your hands wherever you feel like placing them on your body. So anywhere you feel like you want to receive some extra love and energy in this practice today, allow yourself to move from a reality beyond the ego mind and to tune into the needs and necessities of your body and heart. As you now stretch your arms away from the shoulders, so bring your arms 60 degrees up. And this is a direct connection with the heart meridian. So this will enable the heart energy to flow more freely. We will learn more about this, but spread your fingers wide, move your shoulders away from the ears, and now take 3 full encompassing breaths where you breathe the air, the oxygen, the energy into the heart, and you breathe out. And you bring your awareness to your fingers and your toes. And you can even feel as if someone pulls your fingers away from the heart when you breathe out. Take a full deep breath in. And full deep breath out as we bring the arms overhead, stretch the body, breathe in. And breathe out through the mouth now. Maybe stick your tongue out and join the hands in front of the heart. Can you release any sense of shame, anything that comes up, any discomfort, and just try, breathe in, invite all the good energy, the presence. Breathe out through your mouth, really stick the tongue out. Let it out. One breath in, bring the arms up. Take in your physical space. Breathe out through the mouth, hands in front of the heart. Now stay here, take a full deep breath in. Breathe out, now roll down vertebrae by vertebrae. If you have some lower back issues, you can bend the legs more and just fold the last part, not rolling down, but just folding down. Roll down, and again, you come into a forward fold and you allow all the hardness, all the tension to dissolve into the back body. Then place your hands onto the shins. Inhale to lift the heart, stretch the spine. Inhale. Exhale, plant your hands underneath the shoulders, come into all fours position, hands and knees position. Yes, you can of course fold a blanket or put something underneath the knees if that's helpful, as you start with some rounds of cat cow. So you're just going to breathe in and open the chest and hollow and look up, and you round the spine and you pull the navel in and up and you press yourself away from the floor. And we're just going to do this for a minute or two. And again, this exercise, which is coming so often in our yoga practice, can you seek the discomfort now? So instead of going automatically to what feels good, can you go to the spaces and bring compassion and openness and exploration to the part that feels dense and compressed? So to look with different eyes to the same reality. And to expand the automatic behaviors into new and more curious, conscious action and behaviors. Take it to a few more moments. Move the body now, maybe not just in hollow round, but maybe there's some other movement that wants to flow through you. Let your movement be an expansion from the navel. So move the body from the navel center and feel if you feel safe to close the eyes and really visualize that this air and this fresh energy and this intention is filling your whole body. So you grow awareness on your light body, your pranic body. So not just the physical mass, but also the energetic experience of self. Take a next inhalation here. Exhale, now spread the fingers wide, come into a neutral position and see if you can step into a high plank position now. So maybe extend the two legs. If this is too much for you, then keep your your knees on the floor. So take a plank position here. This is something that triggers discomfort easily for people. So stay here a little bit, just to that moment you don't want to be there anymore. So instead of being in your mind and having all these thoughts about it, can you fully immerse in the posture? Can you press your heels more back? Create more space between the shoulder blades by pushing hardly into the floor. That's it. Push into the hands, press into the knuckles. Now stay here and find full physical silence and breathe for 3. Draw the navel in and up. Notice the shaking if it's happening. 2. 1. Deep breath in. On an exhalation, you're going to come slowly down to the floor. So with or without knees, slowly hover and lower down to the floor onto the belly all the way. Untuck your toes, press the tops of the feet into the floor and feel it as somebody pulls your toes back. Hug the elbows in. Yes, beautiful. Yes, hands underneath the shoulders. And now on an in-breath, you're going to lift the chest, but you release the hands. So lift the chest, release the hands. Hello, beautiful. Hello, crown of the head. Lift the chest. Lift the heart more from the navel. Press the navel into the floor. Bring your chin a bit to the chest and now feel if you can lift the heart higher. Spread the hands as if they were on the floor, but lift them. Take another breath in. Try to lift a bit higher. Breathe out. Now release fully down. And now bring your awareness to that same engagement. We're going to press up into upward facing dog, but you slide the hands back and you're going to lift everything. So lift your hips now, lift your knees, lift everything into Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Close your eyes, beautiful. Lift everything and try to really focus on that beautiful elongation of the spine. Feel the space to the crown of the head. Lift up and breathe in. Breathe out, come into downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So press back, use the engagement in the pelvic floor, and now take your first down dog. Roll the shoulders away from the ears, the triceps away from the ears, beautiful. As you focus now on spinal alignment, so bend the legs maybe a bit more and feel if you can truly elongate the spine. Any organic movement that needs to flow through you is welcome as well, as you take 3 full breaths here, in and out. Where is the mind? Where is your attention? Can you come back into the body? Explore with an open view and intention. Beautiful. Take another full deep breath in. Full deep breath out as you come high onto the toes. Bend your legs and you step or jump into a squat position. So feet land on the outside of the hands and you come and sit into a nice Malasana squat position. Hands can be on the floor or hands can be in front of the heart. And you can also explore some movement here. So maybe extend the arms, feel some space around the heart. And you just bring some intuitive movement as the hips stay really heavy and just feel what feels good for you now. So what kind of movement? Take another full deep breath in. On your next exhale, you come into the center, 2 hands to the floor. Now breathe in here, breathe out, come back into your forward fold, Uttanasana, turn your toes forward, drop the head down. Now lift the heart, breathe in. Breathe out, release fully down, and now sit onto a chair, Utkatasana, swing your arms up and sit onto a chair, bring your arms up, beautiful. Try to feel as if you have a block in between the knees, so have this inner sense of squeezing, engage your glutes, lift the chest more. If it's more helpful for you to bring the arms back and to really pull the shoulder blades together, you can do that as well. So bring, yes, that's it. Draw the navel into the spine and try to sink lower each time you breathe out. Connect all your power into your navel center, all your energy into connection rather than distraction. Breathe in and breathe out, sink lower and lower and lower until you come to a seated position. So sink lower and lower and lower and try to enter a Navasana with or without hands. So the boat posture, you know it, with or without hands, try to enter the boat. So smooth, explore, be curious, and try to enter your boat posture with or without hands. That's it. So from the chair to the boat, with or without hands, explore rather than setting yourself up for any result in advance. Explore and then come and sit in your boat posture, sit onto the buttocks, extend your arms forward. And we're gonna take 3 breaths here. Close your eyes, lift the chest up, breathe 1. Can you try to straighten the legs a bit more? 2. Then plant your feet onto the floor, plant your hands behind the shoulders. Lift the chest now, breathe in, push into the hands, or possibly lift the hips as well into your upward plank. Yes, beautiful. So you can lift the hips as well if that feels okay. 3 breaths. 2. And then on an exhalation, you're gonna come and sit down. Come and sit slowly down. That's it. And you can come just to a simple, comfortable meditation seat just for 1 moment. And as we are all women in the practice, I would love to close the practice with a small meditation that is aimed at connecting with our Shakti center, with our feminine center, by placing your hand on your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your uterus. But if you don't have, or for some reason don't have, place it on your lower belly, your sacral center, your center of creation. Place one hand on the heart, one hand below the navel, really a bit lower, not on your intestine, on the uterus or that space. Try to sit up tall and roll the weight a bit in front of the sitting bones, so you can even sit on a chair as well. But the most important part is that you are connected with your spinal column and that your weight is a bit into the front triangle, so to the front of the sitting bones, while drawing the navel into the spine. Now allow this flow free of prana to move between your forehead and your lower abdomen, your creative center, your uterus. As you simultaneously breathe into your heart, and from the heart on an out breath, the energy, the awareness flows through your hands. And your own hands become magnets for healing. I would love to invite you here to sit here to feel. In a world where we are criticized by others, by ourselves, where we are criticized and discouraged to feel, where feeling is perceived as a weakness, I want to invite you to intentionally feel. That means to have no judgment on whatever there is experienced, but to bring your attention to your breath, your bodily sensations, and an invitation to a willingness to feel. That when you cultivate that conscious awareness, that there are inherently no more good or bad feelings, that all your sensations show you something. All your forms and shapes are valuable when it comes to the development of your soul. Everything becomes a teacher. And you are open and curious to explore your inner world beyond just automated thoughts, beyond immediate urges. So take a minute here together. I would love to invite you to create space between sensations, space between thoughts, space for yourself, space for all there is need to be felt right now. You try to lift your heart space a little bit, possibly bowing the chin a bit down. Elongate the base of the skull. I would love to finalize the practice with 3 full in and out breaths. Repeating, if it resonates, 3 breaths in and out, breathe in. And fully, slowly out. I am not my thoughts. Breathe fully in. Breathe fully, fully, fully out. I am not my judgments. Breathe fully, fully in. Breathe fully, fully out. I am full potential. I am filled with potential and ability of expansion. I'm able to expand whatever resonates. Join your hands again in front of the heart. Take a full deep breath in. And breathe out. Bow your head to your heart. And bow your head and your thoughts to this endless exploration and information you're not even aware of. Open your eyes and open your hands again. Thank you for sharing this short practice with me. Thank you. It's very simple in asana, but you can bring this to, like, I love, if you will, I will activate a membership you can share. I love to also do advanced styles and advanced postures, but it's so much more fulfilling when you can have this attitude to the different layers of the practice. And then if you do a headstand or you don't do it, it's about how you are with yourself when you're doing it. So it becomes a whole different meaning. These, I had this, because sometimes we say advanced postures, but it's not, because advanced yogi, it's not the yogi that does all the postures. So we can say these more physically challenging postures, these more physically demanding postures, but they're not more advanced, because that implies that we are more advanced yogis when we master the posture. But the most beautiful advancement we can have is to become more connected human beings with ourselves and with the world, or at least that the practice that Monica and I like to share is something that actually brings a change in the world, you know, to all the communities, to all the people, to the people like, yeah, I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but I was in Lisbon today, like I acknowledge all people. One of the practices I do is to share love and light to people. So I'm just walking on the street and I just give you blessings, give you blessings, give you blessings in myself. And I just smile and I acknowledge people that are working on the road to make the road where I can walk. Person that is cleaning the garbage, a person that is living and sitting and begging for money, because we are all humans. And as long as we are disapproving or putting ourselves above or even below people, we are not advancing as a race. So yeah, go deeper into this. But what I wanted to say is we can bring our yoga next to the mat, and then yoga truly becomes a transformative practice and actually makes a change. So thank you for sharing the practice with me. Thank you, Monica, for your beautiful demo, and your garden looks amazing. It's really awesome. Wow.